Hello, this is Bevan with Perceptive Souls. And last time I recorded a video, I was outside on my patio. It was warm, inviting, and today it's cold. And I don't know about you, but as an empath, one of the characteristics that shows up for me is a strong reaction to the weather around me. Whether that's a change in the seasons or the temperature or the air pressure. I always say that I'm a human barometer. I can predict when it's going to rain about 45 to 48 hours in advance. And so today I'm warm and I'm cuddly. I'm in the living room coming to you to talk about a really interesting topic that's come up over and over in my life. And that is around self-sacrifice. When we deliberately put our needs on the back burner because we assume that that's what's being asked for, or that's what's in the betterment of the whole, or we feel afraid to speak up and ask for what we need and what we want in our life. And I've done a lot of work around this on a personal level and a spiritual level, to look at, what is my value and how am I really standing in my truth for myself? How am I speaking what I need and what's important to me? And boy, ever since I've been on that journey, it's gotten a lot better. I've been able to connect in deeply to who I am. And not just make it about what everyone else needs and wants. But lately, there have been a few things that have come up that just made me question, how far have I come on that journey? Is there still work that I need to do around this piece? And this may seem like a pretty superficial example, but just stick with me. The other day, this dear friend in my life and I were making homemade pizzas at his home, and I said, boy, do you have some avocado? Because I really like avocado on pizza. And he made this face, right? And I was like, I said, do you have an avocado that's already cut up? And he said, well, no, I don't. And for those of you that like avocado, like when you cut it, you have to use it within a day or so, or it just turns brown and mushy and unappetizing. There's different ways you can extend that life. But and so I sat there and I thought to myself, well, I don't really want to ask him to cut open something that, he may or may not be able to use in the next couple of days. Maybe it's not that important for me to have this on my pizza. I'm just going to let it go. And, this is a very superficial, minor thing. I even probably would say like a first world problem. There are people in our world, in history, and even currently, who are sacrificing enormous things in order to, sometimes even their life, in order to make things better in their communities and their piece of the world. So I don't mean to be trivial about it. But as I thought about it today, I realized, why did I do that? An avocado is like 50 cents in America. I certainly could even have given him the 50 cents so that I could have had what I needed and what I wanted on my pizza. And instead, I made all of these assumptions in my mind about, well, he didn't approve of that. He doesn't like avocado, so is that weird for me to put avocado on my pizza? Or am I being a bother to someone else because I asked for something that's unusual or out of the norm? And, I realized, particularly as sensitive people, that this is something we really struggle with. We struggle with feeling like what it is that we need to be safe and comfortable and have our downtime and feel like we're managing a level of stimulation in our life that's acceptable, and what we need to be healthy and happy. Well, sometimes we feel like we can't ask for that. Sometimes we feel like we're imposing on another person. So we try to do all of these things ourselves, right? We're like, I'm just going to do it myself, kind of like a toddler. And we make assumptions about how another person is going to react, what they're going to say. Gosh, I don't want to be rejected. I don't want them to think I'm weird or that I need something special. So I'm just going to try to blend in. I'm just going to try to, you know, in the series that I've been doing about shutting down your heart and opening your heart, you know, this is a piece where we shut down a piece of our heart, where we really say to ourselves, you know, what you need is not important right now. It's more important that we think about others. It's more important that we do that one more thing that someone wants us to do instead of saying, you know, I really can't take that on right now. You know, it's more important that we defer what we need on a physical level or a mental or emotional or spiritual level so that we're not making other people uncomfortable. But what I would ask is, how do you know that you're going to make someone uncomfortable? Because as I've started to have a needs conversation, as I've started to say, this is what I really need to feel good and to feel safe and to feel healthy, most people are actually willing to meet me there. You know, not always. Then they're not always able to do that. And then in those moments, then I realize, okay, then we can negotiate and we can look at what's possible, or I can find a different way to get my needs met that doesn't involve having someone else provide something for me if that's not acceptable to them. Or I find out that if I really need something, particularly in a relationship, it's like, this is kind of a deal breaker for me. I really need X, Y, and Z in order to feel safe and comfortable in this relationship. And they're not willing to provide that, then it's not the right fit for me. And so this idea of constantly self-sacrificing, of constantly doing something else for someone else, of running that tape through our mind of, you know, this is what they're going to think, or I don't want to be a bother, it becomes, you know, really unhealthy for us to do that. What happens is we still have that need. It's still inside of us, that desire, that need, that really deep caring for ourselves. And when it doesn't get met, then we get resentful. And if this happens over and over with the same person or same group of people, that resentment builds over time. We, you know, begin to really feel that they just don't care about us. They just don't really want us to feel good, or they just don't want to provide for us. And that may or may not be true, because they may have no idea what we need, because we're not comfortable with actually speaking up. Now, there's that moment when you get ready to have a needs conversation. You're running through it in your mind. You're like, am I going to say this? Am I going to say this? I'm supposed to say this, but I feel really uncomfortable saying this. And then there's that moment where you just get grounded and centered within. And you realize, this is for me. For once, I'm going to do this for me. I'm going to speak for what I need and want. And when you breathe into that moment, when you really get clear, when you honor yourself and your needs, and you're unwilling to self-sacrifice any longer because you know it is not in your best interest, then you can say, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, and then it comes out. You allow your voice to speak. You allow it to come from your heart. You allow it to not be judgmental to someone else. You allow it to be loving and kind and compassionate to yourself. You open yourself to the possibility that you could actually get what you need and even more. And if the other person's not willing to provide that, then you still can. You can still find a way to get what you need in a relationship, to get what you need in a work environment, to get what you need from your family dynamics. Now, sometimes those are not easy conversations, and sometimes they're not easy decisions to make depending on the outcome of that conversation. But once you start realizing that I matter, what I want, what I need, What is coming for me in my life is something I deserve. Then you begin to open your heart. You begin to create that space. It's a little vulnerable, but it's also deeply caring to yourself. It's like giving yourself a hug and saying, I'm worth it. I deserve this. I want this. It's okay that I want this. It's okay that I don't want that. You know, this is a journey. It's a practice. When it comes up, you just continue to work through that conversation inside yourself. You continue to believe that, you know what, the conversation inside myself is the harder conversation than the conversation outside myself. When I go to have this conversation with the other person, I've built up this huge thing inside about what it's going to be. And many times it's not that at all. So had I said to my friend, you know, I really would like the avocado. Is it okay if I cut it open? Here, I'll seal it up into a package for you. Or, you know, I'll take it home and I'll use it and then I'll get you another one. You know, there's always ways that we can find to compromise. And compromise is a very different energy than self-sacrifice. You know, we don't want to be a martyr, but we do want to work on getting what it is that we need and what we want in our lives. If this sounds very familiar to you, if this is a struggle that you've had, if you've closed off your heart in self-sacrifice, you don't want to be a bother to anyone, you don't want to create waves, you don't want to ask for anything that might seem unusual, I invite you to check out the work that I do on perceptivesouls.com. You know, I am a coach and a guide for highly intuitive and empathic people who've shut down their gifts and their heart because of fear or because of being misunderstood or because of overwhelm for the messages that you're receiving. And, you know, join me in a conversation to talk about how to ask for your needs. You know, it's a beautiful journey. It's a journey well worth taking. Your life will improve if you choose to do this. And most importantly, you deserve it. You are an eternal soul, connected to the greater source, the greater oneness. And when we remember that this is our origin, remember this is who we are, then we know that asking for what we need is a part of our birthright. It is not a bother. There's no need to be a martyr. We deserve to have what we need and what we want to be happy and healthy and whole. I thank you for joining me tonight. And just like the phoenix that I drew that is standing behind me, every single moment we can burn it all down and we can rebirth ourselves from the ashes. There is never a moment when you cannot reinvent your life. And I thank you for being here and for joining me.